I want to start today by asking you to check your engine. You know that feeling when you are pushing absolute maximum RPMs, the late nights, the endless checklists, that constant nagging, almost vibrating drive for more? Usually in our culture, we call that ambition. We celebrate it. We put it on posters. But today, we're asking a slightly uncomfortable question. What if that engine isn't running on ambition at all? What if it's running on something heavier?
It's the difference between running a race because you desperately want the medal and running a race because something with teeth is chasing you.
That is a terrifying distinction. And frankly, it's one I think a lot of us avoid thinking about.
It is, and it's the core of what we're exploring today. We're looking at a breakdown of the psychology of overachievement by psychoanalyst and researcher Sara Shadabi. Her mission here is pretty bold. She's trying to dismantle the way high performers view their own success. She argues that for a massive specific subset of people, what looks like crushing it on the outside is actually a state of chronic low-grade panic on the inside.
There was one line in her research that honestly made me put the paper down for a second and just stare at the wall. She writes, "Overachievement isn't always ambition. Sometimes it's fear wearing a success costume."
A success costume. It's such a visceral image, isn't it?
It really is. It forces you to look at your career, your side hustles, even your gym routine, and ask, am I running toward a goal, or am I just running away from the feeling of not being good enough? Because on Instagram, those two things look identical.
Exactly. And that brings us right to the foundation of Shadabi's argument. She doesn't just theorize or offer pop psychology. She grounds this in self-determination theory.
Okay, so that goes back.
Yeah, this goes back to Ryan and Dissey's work from the early 2000s. And the big takeaway there, and this is crucial for anyone listening who manages a team or even just manages themselves, is that the amount of motivation you have matters significantly less than the type of motivation you have.
Wait, hold on. Let's unpack that. Because I think most people assume motivation is just fuel. You put gas in the car goes. If I get up at 5 a.m. to work, the work gets done regardless of why I'm up. Does the type actually change the outcome?
In the short term, maybe not. You might still get the promotion. You might still hit the deadline. But Shadabi points out that if your motivation is what researchers call controlled motivation, meaning it's driven by pressure, external expectations, fear of failure.
Needing to prove your worth.
Right. The internal cost is astronomical. Ryan and Dessy found that people driven by this pressure achieve the goals, yes, but they feel significantly less calm. They are technically winning, but they're vibrating with stress.
So it's the high-functioning anxiety archetype. You're hitting every KPI, your boss loves you, but you feel like the world is about to end every Tuesday.
Precisely. You're successful on paper, but physically and mentally you are in a chaotic state. And to understand why that happens, Shadabi uses a very specific framework. She breaks it down into approach versus avoidance motivation.
I found this part fascinating because I think most of us bounce between these two states all day without even realizing it. Let's break them down.
So let's start with the good stuff. Approach motivation. This is when you're moving toward a reward. You're moving toward growth, toward meaning, toward a positive outcome. The energy is propulsive.
Okay, so I want to nail this presentation because I'm genuinely excited about the data and I think it's going to help the team.
Yes. I want to write this book because I have a story to tell. Now, flip that to avoidance motivation. This is when you're moving away from a threat. You're moving away from shame, away from judgment, away from the possibility of screwing up.
So that becomes, I have to nail this presentation so I don't look like an idiot in front of the board.
Exactly. The action is the same. You're prepping the slides, you're rehearsing, but the neurochemistry is totally different. Shadabi uses a battery drain analogy here that I think is brilliant. When you're in approach mode, you're actually generating energy. It's sustainable. You might get tired, but it's a good tired. Avoidance, on the other hand, is a massive energy sink.
Why is the drain so much faster? Is it just because fear is heavy?
It's because of how the brain handles threats. When you're in avoidance mode, your brain's threat detection system, specifically the amygdala, is permanently switched on. You're hypervigilant. Your body is pumping cortisol because it thinks you're in danger.
So even if I'm sitting in a comfortable ergonomic chair, typing an email, if I'm doing it out of avoidance, I better send this or they'll think I'm lazy. My body is physiologically reacting like I'm being hunted.
That's it. And think about the pace difference Shadabi mentions. Approach has a rhythm. It's steady. Avoidance is erratic, tense, fast. It's that feeling of constantly looking over your shoulder. You're sprinting, but you aren't sprinting to the finish line. You're sprinting so the bear doesn't catch you.
And if you do that for 10 years?
You burn out, even if you're winning, especially if you're winning, because the bear just gets faster.
Okay, so if we're listening to this and realizing, uh-oh, I think I've been running from the bear since college, the next logical question is, why? We aren't born worrying about quarterly reviews or what people think of our job titles. Babies don't have performance anxiety. Where does this wiring come from?
This is where Shadabi takes us back to childhood. She references research on a concept called conditional regard.
Conditional regard. That sounds clinical, but I have a feeling the definition is going to hit close to home for a lot of us.
Is the lesson learned often very implicitly that lovable equals productive? It's when a child learns that when they get the A, or score the goal, or win the prize, they are safe, they are seen, they are praised. But when they don't perform, that affection, or even just that sense of safety, is withdrawn.
And it's not necessarily that the parents are cruel. It's not about abuse. It's just that the praise is tied strictly to the output. Good job getting that A versus, I love how hard you tried.
Right. And the child is smart. They're survival machines. They connect the dots. I am safe when I am achieving. The problem is you grow up. The parents might not even be in the picture anymore, but you internalize that voice. It turns into an internal pressure loop.
So it switches from, mom and dad want me to do well, to, I must do well to justify my existence.
And that must is the killer. It stops being a choice. Shadabi explains that for the overachiever, resting feels dangerous. Because if safety is tied to performance and you stop performing to take a nap, you've just made yourself unsafe.
That explains the guilt. You know that Sunday afternoon guilt where you're trying to watch a movie but your brain is screaming that you should be doing laundry or answering emails?
That is the loop. Your brain is saying, we aren't producing, so we aren't safe.
This leads into another concept Shadabi discusses, which I think visualizes this perfectly. She talks about contingent self-worth.
Yes, this comes from Crocker and Wolf's research. It's a great visual. Picture your self-esteem as a table. A healthy table has 4 or 5 legs. Maybe one leg is your career, one is your relationships, one is your hobbies, one is your health, one is your community.
So if you have a bad day at work, one leg kicks out, the table still stands. It might wobble, but it stands.
Exactly. You're still a whole person. But for the overachiever with contingent self-worth, Shadabi describes their table as having only one massive pillar. And that pillar is labeled success.
That sounds incredibly unstable.
It is structurally unsound. If that one pillar cracks, if you fail a project or get a piece of negative feedback or lose a client, the whole table collapses. You don't just feel like you failed the task. You feel like you were a failure. You feel like you become nothing.
That raises the stakes to a life or death level. No wonder people are anxious. If I think a typo in an email is going to collapse my entire sense of self, I'm going to read that email 50 times.
And you're going to be exhausted afterward. This is why the anxiety becomes chronic. You have to guard that one pillar with your life every single second of the day. You're constantly on patrol.
And to make matters worse, we aren't just guarding our pillar in isolation. We're doing it in a world that is constantly showing us everyone else's pillars. Shadabi brings in social comparison theory here.
Right. Festinger's work from the 50s. But Shadabi updates it for the digital hellscape we live in. She calls it the infinite ladder.
Mm-hmm.
In 1954, you compared yourself to your neighbor, Bob. Maybe Bob had a nicer car. That was annoying. But it was manageable. The data set was small.
Now you open your phone and you're comparing yourself to a 19-year-old billionaire in Silicon Valley, a fitness model in LA, and your friend from high school who just made partner and seems to be vacationing in the Maldives.
The comparison set is global now. And because the internet has no ceiling, the bar is always moving. You climb to the next rung, you feel good for about 6 seconds, you look up, and there's still a million people above you.
So enough becomes a moving target. You can never actually arrive because the destination keeps shifting.
Comparison turns enough into an external metric that you can't control. It creates a permanent deficit mindset. You're always chasing a horizon that moves away from you as you run toward it.
We've got the single pillar, the bear chasing us, and the infinite ladder. It's a perfect storm for misery. But Shadabi goes even deeper into the psychology. She talks about schema therapy. Is this where we get into the really deep-seated stuff?
It is. This is where we look at the armor. She connects overachievement to specific schemas, which are basically deeply held patterns of thinking. The big insight here is that for many people, perfectionism isn't about excellence. It's a shield against shame.
If I'm perfect, nobody can hurt me.
Or, if I'm perfect, nobody will see that I'm actually broken. She identifies 2 schemas: defectiveness shame and unrelenting standards. The logic is, deep down, I feel flawed. I feel defective. To hide this and to protect myself from anyone finding out, I will hold myself to unrelenting standards.
So the high performance, the late nights, the perfect slide decks, the flawlessly curated life, that's all just a sophisticated defense mechanism.
It's armor. Brilliant, shiny golden armor. But think about what that means for praise. If you win an award and people tell you how great you are, why doesn't it soak in? Why doesn't it feel good?
Because they're applauding the armor.
Exactly. They aren't applauding you, they're applauding the performance. So the person inside the armor still feels small and scared and unseen. The success never heals the underlying shame because the success is just a barrier.
That is tragic, actually. It explains the imposter syndrome epidemic. You feel like you've tricked everyone with your hard work.
And you're terrified the mask will slip?
Okay, we need to pivot. We've diagnosed the problem, and it is heavy. But surely not everyone who works hard is in this pathological state. How do I know if I'm just ambitious or if I'm in this unhealthy overachievement zone? Shadabi gives us a diagnostic check, right?
She does. She gives us 3 flashing warning signs. If you recognize these, your check engine light is definitely on.
Lay them on us. What's sign number 1?
Sign number 1, difficulty stopping. And she doesn't just mean you work a lot. She means the inability to stop, even when your body is screaming at you.
It's compulsive.
Yes. It's a voice that says, just one more email at 11 p.m. when your eyes are blurring. You literally cannot give yourself permission to power down because the anxiety of stopping is worse than the pain of working.
I think a lot of us feel that. What's number 2?
Low pleasure or low savoring. This is the big one. You chase a goal for 6 months. You finally hit it. You sign the deal. You launch the product. What do you feel?
Ideally, joy, celebration, maybe popping a bottle of something.
But the unhealthy overachiever mostly feels relief. They feel, thank God that's over. I didn't die. There's no savoring. It's just the absence of pain.
That's bleak. It's like eating a meal and tasting nothing.
And that leads directly to sign number 3, rapid devaluation. You win, and almost instantly your brain discounts it. Oh, that wasn't actually that hard. Anyone could have done that. What's next?
You move the goalpost the second the ball goes through.
Immediately. Because if you rest on your laurels, remember, the pillar might fall. So you have to find the next thing to prop it up.
Shadabi also mentions a physical cost to this. It isn't just all in our heads.
No, the body keeps score. She gives examples of high performers who ignore the psychological signs, the lack of joy, the compulsion, until the body pulls the emergency brake. We're talking insomnia, migraines, digestive issues, sudden panic attacks.
It's the classic leisure sickness. You push and push, and the first day of your vacation, you get the flu.
That's your immune system finally crashing because the cortisol drip stopped for 5 minutes.
Okay, we're running from fear, we're draining our batteries, and we can't enjoy the wins. Please tell me Shadabi offers a way out of this.
She does. And I love it because it's practical. She doesn't say, just stop caring or quit your job and move to a farm. She offers a tool called the Hidden Fear Map.
This is based on expressive writing, right?
Yes. Combining Pennebaker's work on expressive writing, which is great for processing emotion, with cognitive reappraisal, which is about reframing thoughts. The goal is to take that dirty fuel avoidance and convert it back into clean fuel approach.
We aren't changing what we do, we're changing why we do it.
Exactly. So there are 4 steps. Shadabi says take 10 minutes, grab a pen, and crucially, don't polish it, name it. Write the raw, ugly truth. Don't write what you think you should feel.
Okay, walk us through the questions. Imagine I'm sitting there with my notebook. What's the first one?
Question 1, what am I trying to escape right now?
That is a shift. Usually we write down, what am I trying to achieve?
Right. But we need to identify the threat. So instead of I want to lead this project, you might be forced to write, I'm trying to escape the humiliation of looking unprepared in front of my boss. You have to name the bear.
Oof. Okay, that requires some serious honesty. Once we've named the bear, what's next?
Question 2. If I fail, what is the worst meaning I attach to it?
We're digging for the catastrophe script.
You're looking for the core belief. If I fail this, it doesn't just mean I missed a deadline. It means I'm incompetent. It means I will be fired. It means I will lose my house. You need to see the catastrophic story your brain is secretly telling you.
It sounds extreme when you say it out loud, but that is often the whisper in the back of the head.
Exactly. Drag it into the light. Usually when you see it on paper, you realize how exaggerated it is. Question 3. If I succeed, why don't I feel calm?
That's the infinite ladder check.
It forces you to admit that the safety is temporary. You might write, I won't feel calm because even if I win this, I have to do it all over again next week. It exposes the futility of trying to fill an internal hole with external wins.
Okay, so we've exposed the fear, the catastrophe, and the futility. That sounds depressing. How do we rebuild?
Question 4. What is an approach version of this same goal?
This is the reframe.
Yes. You look at the task, say that presentation, and you ask, is there a way to do this for growth, for learning, for helping others?
So instead of, I have to do this to avoid getting fired, it becomes what?
It becomes, I want to give this presentation because I actually care about this project and I want to share my team's hard work. Or I want to see if I can explain this complex idea more clearly than I did last time. I want to test my skills.
I can feel the physical difference in that just hearing it. One feels tight and defensive, the other feels open.
That is the shift from avoidance to approach.
Mm-hmm.
You aren't just playing not to lose, you're playing to win or to learn. And physiologically, that turns off the alarm bells in the amygdala. You stop the battery drain.
You might still work hard, you might still get tired.
But it's a good tired. It's the tired of a workout, not the exhaustion of panic attack.
That distinction is everything.
It is.
We have covered a massive amount of ground here, from the childhood roots of conditional regard to the armor of perfectionism. If we had to boil Shadabi's message down to a single bumper sticker, what are we taking away?
I think it's this. Healthy ambition is fueled by growth and autonomy. You choose it, and you want to grow. Unhealthy overachievement is fueled by anxiety and contingent worth. You have to do it, or you feel you're worthless.
Am I doing this for growth or for safety?
And realizing that safety via achievement is an illusion. It's that single pillar. It'll always wobble. Real safety comes from diversifying your life so that success isn't the only leg you're standing on.
This has been such a necessary reality check. It challenges the very nature of our work ethic. And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a thought to mull over. We've talked a lot about running away from the fear of failure, but flip that coin.
What's the flip side?
If you stopped running away from the fear of being ordinary, what would you actually run toward?
That is the real question.
If you weren't afraid of being average, what would you love enough to do anyway? That might be where your real healthy ambition is hiding.
And I suspect for many of us, the answer looks very different from our current Outlook calendar.
I suspect you're right. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. If this resonated, try that hidden fear map. Just 10 minutes. See what monsters are living under the bed.
It might just save your battery.
Until next time, take care of yourselves.